Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of The Practice. This show is an unrehearsed look into my workflow. I'm Stuart. I'm a 3D artist, illustrator, designer, and your pal, and I'm excited to have you back again this week. So, we've done similar episodes to this in the past, or I should say, perhaps a similar episode. But today, I want to use the character object and use that to pose a simple character design that we're going to create using some box modeling and some subdivision surfaces. So let's jump right in. So what I like to do is, when you're box modeling, it's helpful to think about the the types of geometries you want to develop, and then use the correct amount of subdivisions to sort of help you get started in that direction. So as you can see, I've got a handful of subdivisions here. I want to do 4 legs, so making sure I have a subdivision underneath here for each of the 4 legs with a polygon in between them. Just going to make things a little bit easier. What's up, Ismail? Thanks for joining in. And I also want to have enough subdivisions running this way so I can do not only those legs like I mentioned, but the neck. And we can always add more later. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that cube editable and just start modifying these polygons here. I also like to turn down the subdivision renderer so it matches the subdivision editor. You'll get a different result in your rendering versus what you see in the viewfinder here if those are set to different numbers. So I'm just going to select these 4 legs and hit D for extrude and just push those down. Start making some legs here. Like I mentioned, I'm going to keep this character fairly simple. Not necessarily low poly, but definitely sort of a streamlined design, which I really like doing. I think we're going to make sort of a dinosaur style character here. Maybe like a brontosaurus kind of a deal. Big, long, dopey kind of plant-eating dinosaur. Which means we're going to have to use a tail. We're going to have to use a subdivision here to sort of make a tail. Something like that maybe is a good start. Actually, that's probably a little bit too narrow. So let's sort of widen that up. So I'm just going through and making little adjustments here and there, scaling things down. Here, just use the loop selection tool. Scale this down to get some nice smooth forms going on in the neck here. That looks a little bit phallic. As you probably know, what's great about the subdivision surface is it sort of interpolates smooth shapes between pieces of simpler geometry. So it'll sort of add subdivisions, and that way I can just grab, these two subdivisions and or these two polygons, and it'll automatically add all these smooth subdivisions between, along these polygon shapes. So it adds a lot of smoothness and just makes the modeling process a whole bunch easier. Another thing I think I'll do is sort of hint at little knees here and these bends in the leg. I think front legs will sort of lean back a little, or do they both go like this? I bet they would go like this. I bet back legs would be a little wider. This might not be an anatomically accurate dinosaur, so bear with me. What's up, Costa? Costa? That's a little better, maybe. Usually animals have, quadrupeds like this have sort of wider haunches than they do forelegs. Let's bump those out a little bit. Whoops. Forgot to grab the other side. All right, how's that for a quick and simple dinosaur shape? Pretty fun. Now what I think I'm going to try to do is use the quadruped. Let's make a copy of this. I'm going to turn this into a null. I'm going to label off, just kind of hide that. What I'm going to do is center out the widget here, the orientation of this guy, so he's sitting right at the floor level. That should make it a little easier to use this character object. So what I'm going to do with this guy selected is I'm going to go to character, and I'm just going to add one of these character objects. by default, it's going to be set to advanced biped. What I want is the advanced quadruped. You could also select just a normal quadruped, which has fewer options, could make it a little easier. What you'll also notice is this arrow is pointing actually towards the rear of the character. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate the character 180 degrees to match the orientation of this arrow. Should make things a little easier. So that's the first component. We start, basically we work left to right here, this character object. And so what we're just going to do is add a root. We're going to add a spine. This is all stuff we're going to adjust in a little bit. Then we want to add a neck and a head. And you'll notice that it adds things in the correct hierarchy. So then I don't need ears and jaws. These are going to be things that are more advanced. You continue adding detail. What I'll do is, since I don't need those, I'll go back to the spine, which is the logical place, I guess you'd think of if you were building the proper hierarchy for a series of joints, basically where things are connected, right? So the head is connected to the neck, which is connected to the spine. If I want to add things to the spine, like arms and legs, then I should go back to the spine, and you'll see there's things like a tail. So let's add a tail. Bones count of 5. That should be plenty. I think I could even get away with, let's say 4 in the tail. And they even have fun little icons here. Look at that tail. We'll go back to the spine. Look at this dynamic tail. I've never done that. I wonder what that's about. Anyway. Let's also add a back leg. And back to the spine and add another back leg. So now we have a left and a right back leg. I'm just trying to keep this hierarchy somewhat organized. Then we go back to the spine and we're going to add a front leg and a front leg. Now you see we've got basically all the limbs that we're planning on rigging. Why is that oriented that way? That's insane. What happened there? That is really weird. The orientation got all janky. Let's try that again. That might be because I started adjusting the orientation, the order and the hierarchy. I didn't think that would make a difference, but perhaps it did. Let's go back leg, front leg, front leg. Okay. Now we've got our 4 legs and a tail and a neck, all attached to our spine here. But you can see those joints dropped in already. All right. Now, as we'll continue moving, now that we've got our skeleton in place, we'll continue moving to the right here in this in these set of tabs under the character object. So I'm going to select this character object and we're going to go to adjust, and you'll see that it'll give us these great little handles to start adjusting and placing our skeleton inside of our character. So I'm going to start just by selecting the root and just using the scale tool and just scaling this whole guy up. That's going to get us, closer to where we need to be. That's a good start. And you can see how it all orients from this bottom position. So that's why I adjusted the widget to be sitting at that bottom position. 0 point, so to speak, right on top of your ground. So now we need to go through and adjust these points to sort of match the position in the actual character. This is where we sort of line up the bones to our character. Weird that our pelvis jumped way up. I'm going to undo it a little bit. This can be a little bit finicky at times. I need to go back and redo some of this stuff occasionally. It does, in the end, wind up saving you lots of time. It's weird how each time I'm selecting this root, the neck moves. I don't like that. I think things will start jumping around a little bit until we get them bound to the geometry itself. And you'll see that it's really helpful. I think part of the problem is I grabbed the pelvis and moved it off, then undid it, and it created an error. But you can also hover over these and see which controller it is. The other thing to note is it's usually, like, you'll notice that if I move these joints, move this joint, I should say, that the things below it in the hierarchy will move with it. So it's usually best to start from central points and sort of move out from there. So for whatever reason, the pelvis jumped again. So I'm going to put that back. I'm going to grab the tail, which is right next to it. This I'm going to move back. I'm also just going to use the scale tool to just make it a lot bigger. It's basically going to be using the scale, the position, and the rotate tools just to get everything in position here. Orient it within our character. That's pretty good. Let's do the same with the neck. I think I do want to move this spine up a little bit. Just going to move the legs up with it, but that's all right at this point. No, I think our tail's a little too high. It's just going to be a little bit of a process of adjusting the position here. There's our neck. We basically want, that's weird that this isn't moving with it. I'd assume that these two would be connected. The scale tool would move them around, but apparently that's not the case. Let's scale that to about halfway. What's up, Brush Mallow? So this is a character design, basically like a brontosaurus type character that I'm using the character object in Cinema 4D to rig, just so I can pose it briefly. And I'll show you how you can typically generate really simple walk cycles using this setup. But I think for today I'll wind up just using it to pose this character. All right, so that's getting pretty close. We do need to adjust these legs here. Seem a little bit close to one another. That's the right front leg, so it needs to come down a little bit. And then we're sort of overlapping. Again, I'm going to use the scale tool. I think what I should also do is actually bring it down a little bit. So we want these points to sort of align with where the shoulder and the knee will be. Sometimes it's useful to go into your 4-up views, see this guy from the side. What's great is you can keep symmetry on, so it will adjust both of these, whoops, at the same time. For whatever reason, it didn't do it right there. It's funny how just as I'm talking about symmetry, I get a symmetry error. Yeah, Ismail, we are rigging, but we're doing it in a simpler way using one of Cinema 4D's built-in tools called the character object. It allows us to really fairly quickly and easily rig up a fairly robust character rig. Now, I'm adjusting the orientation of the knee and ankle here to fit with what we have with this dinosaur. This could potentially cause some issues with um, our automatic walk cycle addition, but I want to get it inside of this leg in a way that sort of matches the structure. Same with this guy. The cool thing is we can always go back and adjust this. I want to try and get everything centered up as best you can. For some reason that adjusted back. That's really frustrating. It shouldn't be doing that. All right, so now we've got our controllers roughed into place, and now we can bind the character. So we go over to this binding tab. Since we had our cube selected when we added this thing in the first place, it automatically bound it to our cube. See, now there's a skin and a UV weight tag, or just a weight tag, I guess, which I think is what allows the skin to sort of fold and move. And then, selecting this character object, we go over to animate. And what I could show you quickly is we can add a walk. Ooh, that looks like it might be janky. It is a little bit. You can see that built into this character animator, or built into this character object, is like an animation um, feature, right? And then once you click this add walk, what it does is it adds this character motion object, which has a whole bunch of options for controlling, automatically controlling stride length, um, and a ton of different options. It is a little finicky here. We're getting some strange overlaps. Now that could be due to the fact that there isn't that much geometry in the base here. This is probably subdivided too few times. That might cause us some issues there. But I'm going to hit undo because I don't want to use this for a walk cycle. I just want to use this to have the character rigged up. And by default, a lot of the options that we need to, or a lot of controllers we need to sort of move this guy around aren't necessarily visible. Some of them are. Some of them are rather small and difficult to see. What you can do is in the display, you can choose sort of what's visible. By default, it hides a lot of this stuff. So you could do full hierarchy, right? And it'll show all of your joints and your objects and your controllers and things like that. So you can go through and actually look at all this stuff it generated automatically. It's pretty crazy. So you can go through and I think you can grab some of this stuff and adjust it. But there's also constraints and stuff like that applied as well. So Sometimes it's not useful to show the full hierarchy. So I like to do controllers. It's weird. Now everything disappeared. Cool. Good to hear, haha. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. It's weird how after I collect none, it disappeared entirely on me. There we go. Components. I want controllers. Huh. I think it might be the scale of my character. You see, there are some controllers, some little null objects that are placed here and there. That allow us to start moving the symmetry around, or the character object around a little bit. So, and then I guess, yeah, we can just grab these legs themselves, the tail. Now, clicking on this Create HUD button will bring this heads-up display and will allow you to start grabbing different components. And so then I can start adjusting the tail. So what I'm going to do first, actually, is make a copy of this pose, right? I'm just going to add that to the off bucket. And then I can start going through and adjusting things. Oh, I think you want the ones labeled con, because I think that means controller, right? Oh. Weird. You know what I think's happening here? I need to remove these because those are geared towards the character that is off, I believe. Maybe that one was. Let's create that HUD again. There we go. And we can start adjusting things, yeah? So what I want to do is start, just adding some natural sort of posing to this dinosaur guy. Then we're going to get him in a nice position, and then add a little scene around him and make a little illustration. If I throw a face on him too, I think this guy needs some facial features. Now, where is our neck? Base of the neck. Tail, tail, tail. Move that one. This is a whole big menu of stuff to be pulling from. Maybe not the most intuitive way to be working, but it saves you a lot of time with rigging and doing weighting and all that stuff. Yeah, and there is, I think there is a weighting map that you could go through and adjust by selecting these and using your weight tool. But I don't think I'm going to do that. What I'm trying to do is find the neck controllers, which I'm not seeing. Yeah, you can see some of the weights are a little janky here. I guess I can go through and just grab the neck itself, start moving it, which has like some IK functionality. All right, so I'm going to remove this menu for now. I'm going to start adding in some scenery to this guy. Thanks for stopping by, Costa. Thanks for tuning in, and you have a good day too. I think what I want to do, well, let's try this. I want to make a face in a way that is different from the way I normally make faces, and I want this character to be a little bit goofy, a little bit funny looking. Which probably already is. So maybe mission accomplished there, but I think the face should follow suit with the rest of the body, being simple and wacky. So I'm going to open up Illustrator. I'm going to make a tree real quick while that's loading. So I'm going to add a camera. Simple little tree. Reducing the polygon count just because we don't need quite that many. These are going to be kind of small trees because there's a large dinosaur after all. Now, let's try this. Find me later. I'm planning to make a very simple face. Actually, that's probably too smiley for what we need. We probably need a face like this. Yeah. I'm going to group these and just sort of center them out in this artboard. That'll make it a little easier to work with in the model here. Save that briefly. Then I'm going to export it as a ping. I want to make sure that I'm using the artboard and that I have a transparent background. That's going to give us the flexibility to change things around. If we have that alpha channel, we definitely change things around once we're inside Cinema. So what I'm going to do is in the alpha channel, I'm going to load that face. And you see now we can do whatever we want with the color. In fact, let's probably go to a dark green on this. And all we have to worry about is that alpha channel. Now, there's going to be some adjustments we need to make. Let's put it back on the cube. You want to make sure that if you're dealing with an alpha channel that you want to combine with another texture is that the alpha channel is furthest to the right. Things will sort of layer in that direction. Now, I don't want this, let's see here, I don't want this to tile. I only want one version of it. I think I want to do it flat, which will allow me to just sort of place it on the face. I'm going to select it and go to my texture selection tool here. Hop out of my camera real fast. Go to my dinosaur. Just start positioning this face where I need him. It's weird that it's projecting through. I think what I can do is turn off both and just do it to front. Huh. Back. Nope. Front. What's happening is it's projecting it straight through. So maybe I don't want it as flat. Do I want it as cubic? I think the move might be to do this. I'm going to delete that. Go to my cube. I'm going to select just this front face. Then I'm going to apply my face just to that. Now that image is limited only to this front face here. And then I'll go to flat. Put it into position. Always a workaround. Again, I don't want it to tile. All right. That is a goofy looking dinosaur. I'm digging it. Oops. That's weird. Oh, it's because I'm trying to rotate this instead of the character itself. I think if I want to rotate these guys, I got to select both of them. Rotate that to bring the texture with. Or, of course, I could just adjust my camera angle, which is what I'm going to do. I want to have both of those eyes visible. Let's throw a little test rendering together. In fact, let's add physical sky. Since we're outside, this is like really my favorite kind of one-click lighting setup. I say one click, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Obviously, we want to go through and adjust some stuff to make it look nice. I usually like to turn up the intensity of the sky, turn down the intensity of the sun a little bit. Now to stylize this a little bit, I think what I'll do is just kill reflectance entirely. Just turn that off. Maybe we'll throw on ambient occlusion. Lighten that up a bit and add some color there. I'm just going to use an instance to make some copies of this tree. Position some of those around. I'm going to make a copy of that plane, bump up the subdivisions, and then start drawing in some hills with the sculpt tool. Just to add some really organic looking variation where this landscape is. Add a couple little bumps and hills. Even copy this again. Do a similar thing. Now, it's fun to make a character who is much larger than all the trees. Trees are usually a more dominating element in the composition. Not with this guy. I think it's finally time to turn GI on. Usually try and wait a little while because that'll add a lot to rendering time. So if I can get a lot of the composition blocked out before I need to add GI, makes things run a little quicker usually. But these shadows are getting pretty harsh. I want to see sort of what we'll be dealing with here in the final go. I think I should increase the gamma a bit. Let's call it 1.4. Also going to add a little more intensity to the sky. Maybe I'll bump that sun back up as well. I don't like the way some of these little these cylinders, no, these capsules rather, are bunching up. So one of the effectors I really like to use is this push apart, which does really exactly what you think it would do. So you can just increase this just a little bit, and that'll get you just, still random distribution, but a little more evenly spaced because they won't be quite so bunched up. You can adjust up and down how close. You don't want them to be pushed apart from one another. And I want kind of a small value here. The value that'll look right will be determined like by the density of the objects you have, how many clones you have, all that good stuff. Also going to play around here with the seed. Looks a little better. It goes slightly higher on this push apart. There we go. Let's see what we're dealing with. So I like that. It adds a little texture to the bottom. And I'm going for like really kind of a monochromatic look here. Given that, I think that the gradient in the background is a little bit much. So I'll probably do is turn off the visibility by adding a compositing tag, turning off scene by camera. What we'll want to do is add a sky and add the color back in that we want to use for the sky color. I'm going to use just a really light blue. And now what I think we'll find is that that will affect the way the rendering looks. You can already see that cast from the lighting. And, I left it like that just to check out how it would look. I think that's too much green, too much ambient lighting. What's up, Oz, or OZ? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sky. I'm just going to copy the compositing tag from the physical sky. And I'm going to turn on scene by camera, but I'm going to turn off scene by rays and scene by GI, which will make it just the background and not illuminate objects. So we should have the lighting be driven by our physical sky and the color just mapped to the sky itself. I think our background color needs to be a little bit bluer. I'm going to scale this tree down just to give it sort of the illusion of depth a little bit. We could use a few more. I could have been smart and made instances of the round-looking trees as well as the pine trees. Sort of switched up the approach there a little bit, which is all right. Whoop, I'm going to get a rendering error there, I can already tell. Sometimes, this is something I'm just experiencing in R20. I haven't really experienced this in other releases, but sometimes you hit render, you can see these like magenta dots pop up. And I know almost immediately I'm going to have some sort of shadowing error when I do that. But usually you just re-render quickly, and then the error is gone, which isn't too much of a pain. But if I was dealing with, a lot of frames, that could become an issue. I love you, cinema, but what the heck? I think I want to make another type of tree. Let's try something here. I seem to recall from like picture books and things like that when I was a kid that back around when the dinosaurs were alive, there were these really weird looking trees with super thick trunks. They should probably have a little bit of a taper to them. Let's try that one out. Now, I think it's a little bit too simple. It doesn't look quite like a tree. I think if I add a little bit of detail to the trunk, that'll help. Kind of looks like a baobab tree. Sort of hinting at some roots here as well. Just using copies of those cylinders. I think actually these grasses would not have been around at this time if the brontosaurus was still there. I think grasses are actually relatively new in evolutionary terms, but who cares? Oh, chat died. That happens. Sorry about that. Though the chat wasn't very active at the moment. It's looking better. Chris Freud, what's up, man? Thanks for joining in. Don't see around these parts too much anymore. Making a dinosaur today. As you can tell, I'm really trying to lean into that monochromatic color palette. Really not a ton of color going on here. Enough to be interesting, I hope. The idea is to have this really simple character, very streamlined looking guy, in this simple in color but rich in detail landscape. Kind of making it up as I go a little bit too. Ah, the old meeting. They'll get you. I think what I want to do is actually add some cloudy business background here. I wasn't loving the way that the tip of the face there was overlapping. Oops, I brought part of the tree with me. I didn't like the way the face was overlapping that branch of the tree. I'm kind of switching it up here a little bit. That reads a little better to me. All right, the scene is starting to get a little bit heavy. Given all these little cloners. I don't like the way they look with that texture down there. And also, to kind of quiet them down a little bit, I like this sort of bumpy texture we get. But you'll notice that I turned off ambient occlusion using a compositing tag. And that just sort of quieted things up a little bit, which is working for me. That way it's catching the light and giving you a little bit of contrast there and sort of bumpiness, but we're not getting that additional shadowing as well. I'm also going to try these in slightly darker color now. Hey, Infotech. Oh, gotcha. That's you, Chris. Funny. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. What a cool opportunity to get to do the cover design for the Monster Project Volume 2 book. It's kind of cool. I moved to Austin earlier this year, and the Monster Project and its founder Katie are based in Austin. So we've gotten together a few times. We've kind of made pals, which has been really cool, and I'm just super excited and honored that she would ask me to contribute in such a big way to the Monster Project. What's cool is that they're actually going to print today. So those will be a reality soon. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. If you go to the monsterproject.org, I believe is the website. You'll be able to buy a copy there. You can pre-order them now, so please do that. All right, so I am feeling okay about this. Getting just about there, I think. It's pretty simple piece. It's let's say an exploration. We got to play with a few new tools. Got to practice our composition skills and have a little bit of fun putting some stuff together here. I always love modeling trees and creating a little landscape. Surprisingly, as much as I love to do characters and animals and creatures, I've never done a dinosaur before, which is probably a miss on my behalf. Right? I like doing monsters, but I've never done a dinosaur. They seem to go hand in hand. Yeah, I think I like the darker version of that grass stuff a little better. The other thing we got to try this episode that I rarely ever do is just using a very simple ping graphic that we created in Illustrator to make the face. Usually I model the face using primitives and sweeps and things like that, but a fun and easy way to do that is just to make a little face in Illustrator and map it on as a graphic, which can simplify certain processes. All right, so I think what I want to do, I want to bump up the gamma and GI a little bit. I think I want it to be just a little brighter, a little bit less contrast. I want that light to travel a little further, and this will be a cool way to compare the two. Also, maybe there's a little bit too much shadowing in the clouds. So I want to turn the luminance up a little bit. Get that just a little bit flatter. You can see how the midtones sort of lightened up when I added that gamma. Especially in a dinosaur here, which is good. A little bit less contrast on that shadow. And I think what you're also getting is a little bit more of a bounce. You see this shadow underneath is a little greener. It's because you're getting more of a bounce off of this green background up into the bottom edge of this model, which is pretty neat. Just a little bit brighter and a little bit more yellow on this dinosaur, just to make them stand out from the background a little bit more. That might be too neon. Let's see what that gets us. Those clouds are looking better. Dinosaur's a lot more contrast. I think, yeah, we needed that additional saturation and brightness. Getting him to really pop there. Kind of hate that I just said make it pop there, but oh well. All right, nice. So I'm digging that. So I'm going to lock that ratio. I'm going to go to HD. I'm going to kick out final rendering. It should only take a minute or so here. I'm going to quit out of Illustrator because oh, it crashed anyway. Good for you. We don't need Illustrator anymore. I'm going to boot up Photoshop while this guy's rendering out. Do a quick bit of color processing and retouching if needed. And we'll call it a day. Now, one thing I didn't notice, but I'm actually really digging, is, it's becoming more obvious as the renderings become larger, but you're getting this crazy stripy pattern in the grass here as all the shadows from these little capsules are laid across. Creates kind of a cool like hatching effect. I really dig that. Especially in the lower lying areas of the landscape where the capsules appear a bit taller. One thing that would have been nice maybe was to go through and add some noise to some of these leaf textures. Kind of break that up and add a little more texture, but we can do that another day. We play with noise a lot on this show. We don't have to do that right. All right. Saving out the ping. Cool. Uh-oh. I just tried to do auto on the brightness contrast just to see what it would get me. I almost crashed there. That's not necessarily what I want. All right. Well, there we have it. Brontosaurus dinosaur illustration. Fun little exercise. This is, I could almost view this piece as sort of a sketch. I don't think it has all of the requisite detail to call this a final, finished, polished piece. But it was a fun exercise. I think I learned a little bit. It was fun early on in the episode just going over using the character object inside of Cinema to sort of quickly rig and pose the guy. You could really build upon some of the features in that character object and do a lot more complicated sort of modeling or animation, I should say, and posing. A lot of if you want to keep up with me and the work that I'm doing, please check me out on Instagram at DLGNCE, and you can find my work on my website diligence.studio. New videos every Tuesday. So we hope to see you next week when we explore more fun topics in cinema. If there's ideas you want to see or topics you want to cover in future episodes, don't hesitate to drop some thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this useful, give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, and you'll get more great content coming your way every Tuesday. Until next week, this is Stuart saying thanks so much for stopping by. See ya.